I'd like to introduce Rabbi Schreier again. Rabbi Schreier is the director of food service at the OU, which means he gets the privilege of dealing with most of the or large portion of the OU certified caterers and restaurants. Rabbi Schreier feels a certain affinity for this program. He himself is a Muslim of Yeshivas Ben Yisrael Chanan, as well as an alumnus of Shalavim. So for all those that went to Shalavim, and you can feel free to give him a shout out as well. Rabbi Schreier also serves as the assistant director of Pesach supervision. So when it comes to all sorts of problems, he's your man that deals with it on a daily basis. So although we may not be in the office, he's a man whose phone keeps on ringing because there's still problems out there. So Rabbi Schreier, take it away.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Gersten and Rabbi Elif. Posting the Chorach Sanya, for me, it's like coming home to the yeshiva, even though it's on Zoom and I'm sitting in my living room, but it's still it's still coming home for me. And also, I'm an alumnus of the ASCO-U, so I'm even more at home today. One would think that I have to reframe this whole conversation. We're assuming we're talking about November 17th, 2019, as opposed to June 17th, 2020. And I'll go there from a story that happened yesterday. As Rabbi Elephant said, we haven't been in our office in 3 months, and most of our caterers have not done any catering events, more than 20 people in the last 3.5 months. So a lot of what we're talking about one might think it's Hilchos of the Mashiach when we're talking about caterers or Kiddush on a Shabbos or a restaurant being open, especially in Manhattan. But we'll talk about it anyway because Mehera Yiboneh HaMikdash or Mehera to find the vaccine for COVID, and we'll all be back to where we were. So that's the framing the conversation. But it's important to know that in whatever capacity that you're going to find yourself, Ezras Hashem, when you finish Smicha, I heard that I forgot who I heard say it, that the YU has 3 tracks, right? They have the rabbinic track, they have the chinuch track, and they have the lay track, right? Wherever you find yourself in finishing Smicha and YU, kashrus can become a big part of your life in whatever community you find yourself. On the handouts you have Mar Makomos, and I've also shared my screen of the PowerPoint that's based on these Mar Makomos. Basically, the Mar Makomos, if you're giving the shir on Shabbos, the PowerPoint is when it's not Shabbos, so you can scroll through it. So we'll start with the ABCs of eating out. So you see various different questions. You have your ice cream store, you have your restaurant, you have your coffee shop, you have your buffet, whether it's a kiddush or not, and then you have got cholent. One Rav once said, for yeshiva bachrim, cholent, starts Wednesday night, Thursday night, raiding the cholent, Friday night, Shabbos. Someone who's married starts Sunday with the cholent from Shabbos until it gets finished. That's his leftovers for the week. So cholent is an all week operation. So it can be any time you want to have your cholent. But that's just the ABCs of eating out. That eating out doesn't only mean you're invited to a restaurant, you're invited to a caterer. It has many different aspects, and especially as we're coming to the summer, many other people go on vacation. These questions come up. Halavai, everyone should be able to get away a little bit during the summer. So we start right on the Mar Makomos. I'm not gonna, when I'm following Rabbi Gersten and Rabbi Schechter and Rabbi Genack are speaking later, I'm not going to start giving shiurim in this. I'm going to try and be as practical as possible. But the Shulchan Aruch and the Mar Makomos are talking about different topics. So the first one is talking about bishul akum. I know Rabbi Gersten referred to it a little bit, but the first is something that's eaten raw, nechal chai. Right, so an apple, if someone cooks an apple, you don't have an issue with bishul akum, peppers, corn, hearts of palm. Right. The second condition will be that of, food cooked by a non-Jew. If it's not edible raw, we have a problem. So we're going to see all of these things come up as we get later on into the second page of the Mar Makomos, where the practical situations at a kiddush on Shabbos and all these relevant things. So eggs, right? Eggs at a bris, we'll come to that. Potatoes, right? You have to be careful when they're cooking potatoes, but maybe not the same min, right? Potato chips, the OU doesn't necessarily require. Bishul Yisrael on potato chips. Then you have meat, right? Raw meat. Unlike some people, we don't necessarily eat raw meat. But fish is a very popular discussion. I'm not going to discuss fish too much because Rabbi Chaim Goldberg will be discussing it in his presentation. But the second condition is, right, it's Ein Olel Shulchan Lachem, something that's not going to be served at a king's table, right? No one's eating Lay's potato chips, no one's eating canned beans, cheese, right, and Olel Shulchan Lachem. But then you have items that are going to be Olel Shulchan Lachem, right? You have your steak, your eggs, right? The eggs at an event, right? Canned potatoes, and you know the two biggest ingredients that we have in what's become a very Jewish food, even though it's not really Jewish, of sushi. Give a shout out to my brother who has a sushi store. The rice and the fish are both issues of Bishul Akum. So one who thinks that one can go to a sushi store, what's the big deal? It's only rice and fish, and if the fish is kosher and the rice is kosher, well, if the rice was cooked by a non-Jew or the fish is cooked, right, you have an issue with your sushi. Another condition that you need to keep in mind is who's turning on the fire, right? Is it a non-chef? This used to be a chef at one of our restaurants, right? In the Mara Makomos, you see a discussion about pilot lights, Shkira Satanur, or something to that effect. This specific pilot light finds itself in the middle of literally right in the middle of the fire. So the Belsky Zechron Bracha always said that if the pilot was big enough to boil water, and it was in the middle, it was part of the actual fire, whereas many pilot lights in the commercial ovens, there's one for each two fires, and it's in the middle, so it's not really part of that fire. We would require the mashgiach to turn on. And the final thing is, right, an issue with domestic help. It's relevant to in a home when you might have a live-in or a babysitter. Right, who turned on the fire? The next discussion in the Ma'amar Komos. Right, so someone asked, and we'll answer it later, the question about nechal chai, if so much of fish, raw fish, but a lot of sushi is not really raw fish. Mostly it's vegetables, and most people are not eating sashimi by itself. They're eating cooked rice with the fish, if you're having fish in your sushi. So it's not, as its own sniff, it wouldn't be, we wouldn't paskin that it doesn't need Bishul Yisrael, but Rabbi Genak, you can ask that question to Rabbi Genak, he likes to talk about it. Right, then we have meat and fish. So we have how this is relevant in many different ways. Right, the Shulchan Aruch writes that we keep meat and fish separate because of sakana, because of tsaras, or whatever the Shulchan Aruch writes. Right, but this has relevance in many different ways. Right, I can't pronounce the name of the sauce. Maybe someone can help me on this one. But this specific sauce on the left, if you look all the way over to the left side, it says OU fish on this sauce. What does OU fish mean? OU sauce is not OU meat. Because of that, we're not going to let a restaurant have this sauce in the restaurant where it says OU fish, because I'm only using it on fish. Only using it on fish is a very hard thing to control, and therefore the OU position when it comes to fish in this sauce, as long as the amount of fish is less than shishim, it can be labeled OU plain, and the sakana is not. The concern of sakana is not there when it's less than shishim, at least according to the OU psak. Right? French fries and meat oil, can it be served with fish? One of the very common questions, you ordered French fries from your local Fleischiker restaurant, right? Or you order from the cafeteria, right? And the question becomes, are you allowed to? Do I have to wait 6 hours after eating the French fries? The answer is it's a definite maybe, because many places are very careful because they want to be able to serve fish and meat together. So they're going to have a separate fryer later for fish. But if they don't have a separate fryer later for French, but if they don't, and they're putting the schnitzel and the French fries in the same oil, then that is actually Fleischiger oil. Right? It may sound repulsive to you, but it comes up very often is, can I serve a tuna pastrami sandwich? Right? Is there can someone have pastrami on their tuna? And the answer is, you couldn't give them a tuna sandwich and put pastrami on a different plate. It doesn't answer the kalim, but the restaurant can't serve that sandwich. And finally, at a wedding, what utensils was it served with? And we'll see that as we go along. Another very, very big issue to deal with is shiluach al yidei akum, right, which is the deliveries from a Fleischiger restaurant. or from a restaurant, and a subcategory of that will be basar shenasal min ayin, right? Meat that disappeared from the eye. So that's relevant. The restaurant, the caterer, who has keys to the refrigerators with meat, fish, poultry, and cheese. Right? What's the story with that? The second case where this is relevant would be, a takeout place or a restaurant that has one of these display cases. But these display cases have, are open on both sides. If they're going to be left overnight, you have to find a way to lock the case. And finally, and my favorite, because this is the personal inside joke with this picture, but the outgoing deliveries, when you order from an OU restaurant and you get a delivery and how is it supposed to come? Right? You want to be sure that it wasn't tampered with, right? Protecting the integrity and the kashrus of the food. Another example, something is not Barnat. Rabbi Gersten may have spoken about it a little, but this is Rabbi Nussbaum, who answers our kashrus hotline. Used to tell me that he gets about 500 questions a week. 250 questions are about Oreos. Another 125 are about dairy equipment, and the other 125 are various questions unrelated. But the most popular question is definitely a question about Oreos, and the source of great misinformation is probably the information about Oreos also. I've spoken in many schools, day schools, high schools, yeshivas. Everyone thinks Oreos are part, and it's a big mistake. There are some factories that could be that the Oreos are part, but because the plain Oreos and many of the other ones are made on equipment where they're making, some of them have a flavor that's dairy, or they're made on equipment that's dairy equipment. The OU doesn't allow what we'll call a parallel product, the same product to appear OUD here and OU parb somewhere else if it's the exact same product. So Oreos are dairy equipment, as are the Haagen-Dazs sorbets. They're OUD, but they're dairy equipment. And the other question with what's the French fries doing here, right? It's a question about, can these French fries be served with fish, which we mentioned earlier. Another example, the Shulchan Aruch Yeridea talks about chalav shkedim, right? That if you have milk that's made of almonds, you have to actually put the container or put almonds on the table for people to know. Now, one could make a case that today it's pretty obvious if you're in your house, if you're getting milk, at your Shabbos meal, they're not giving you, they're not taking out your regular milk to serve it. However, the Shulchan Aruch still says that you should put the shkedim there. So you see the first picture, the coffee rich, the rich's whip. We insist by our caterers, even if the fanciest dinners, that they use these portion-controlled creamers, because it says what it is and it's parv. And one of the reasons that they do that is because in most non-kosher hotels, and we'll get to that later in the presentation, in most non-kosher hotels, we have a situation where they have milk easily available. And if we allow them to pour the milk, quote unquote, into these carafes, into these pitchers, there's no way to really know without starting a whole test, pouring the citrus juice into it to see if it's milk or it's not. And especially in a treifa place, in a hotel where the staff, and that we'll discuss this a little later in the presentation, often in a non-kosher venue where there might be kashering, the staff in this venue is from the place, is from the venue. And they know where everything is, and they have access to the milk and whatever anyone wants. And therefore, one of the ways to prevent this from happening is to be sure that even at the fanciest dinners, they serve these portion control milks to avoid this. The coffee mate, right, it's called a non-dairy creamer, and it has an OUD on it. There's an ingredient in the coffee mate called sodium caseinate, or a version of that, that is a derivative of lactose, which is a milk sugar. This milk sugar is actually dairy. In some of them, it's less than 2%, and it could be. Belsky has a whole story how you might be able to, use it in coffee and milk. But you can ask that Shiloh to Meganak, maybe he can explain it better. But if your small amount of that coffee made into your coffee, not having it with your meal, with your fleishik meal, but you don't have to wait 6 hours to have that milk with coffee. But that's don't quote me on that one. You have to get more details on that. The next one is a soy milk, right? Some soy milks are parv, some are OUD or dairy equipment. So in a restaurant situation, we're not going to let them use any soy milk that's OUD. They tell me they're using it for for only the desserts. So dessert, what's the problem? It's eating it after the meal. I know in a number of recipes that my wife uses for a kugel uses soy milk also, so you can't use that for a kugel that you're eating with your flesh. And the almond bries, right, in the non-refrigerator pack, but the pack, that's on the shelf, right, is actually part of it, right? If served by a meat meal, you require the actual container. Okay, so now we turn to page 2 of the sheet, which is a more practical view of the Shabbos Picnic. So let me give just a background to each of these sections, so we can discuss it. We're talking about November 2019, so we're talking about on a regular Shabbos in many communities. There are many different kiddushim, and what are some of the concerns that a mashgiach or the kashrus agency has to be aware of? So one of the things that the agency, whether it's you or someone who's representing the agency, needs to do is to be sure to be reading the menus of the caterer, right? So we're talking about a kiddush or a Shabbos event. So for example, right, you have to make sure that if they're reheating food on Shabbos, that it's only dry, fully cooked food. What does cholent constitute? As far as I can tell, no two cholents are the same, and every week cholent is different, so it's not clear what status cholent has, right? And if you're coming to a kiddush and they're serving this sweet and sour corned beef or sweet and sour tongue or meatballs and gravy, right? How is this being served on Shabbos day, right? You have to ask the question, right? So we offer three options for heating food. One is this GI pot, which is on top of a blech, and you put a sheet pan on top of the pan, and then you load your pans above that is one option. The second option is a non-adjustable hot plate that doesn't get too hot, but you can use on Shabbos. And the third is if you see in the corner of up here, you can have the fire on over here and put the food all the way up here, which is far away from the stove, the shelf above the stove. So we write, right, food may be placed on the shelf above the stove, pots of hot water may be set up on GI pots with sheet pans covering them. You can then put dry food on top of that, or a non-adjustable hot plate that is never used for cooking, right? It may have dry, fully cooked food directly placed on Shabbos. So the Rabbi Belsky Zichrono Livracha, besides being a Talmud Chacham Atzum, was very well versed in the ways of the world. When we were putting together our guidelines, he said, "What do you mean? When I go on a trip with my wife, I take a hot plate and I cook on it." None of us do that, and it doesn't seem to be the normal course of it. That's why he wanted to be sure that the old Israeli hot plates only got to a certain temperature. Some of the newer ones get very hot. So one has to be careful, and ask your Rabbeim or have a policy when it comes to these matters. Next, this question is a very big question and is a very big challenge for a kashrus agency. Right? It sounds simple. Where to follow the baked goods from? Most caterers do not do their own baking. Right? They're making the fleish, they're making the salads, they're making the kugels. They're not making the challahs, and they're not making the baked goods. And in fact, today there's a much bigger cottage industry where people make cakes in their home, and they make a big parnasa from it. The OU is an agency, and many of the national agencies will not give hashgacha to someone who makes stuff in their own home. We might make an exception if there's a separate entrance and there are no concerns of yichud, and the mashgiach can come in at any time, and it's not, the woman would have to go out of her house to go to the basement and to get it. But what many of these people are bringing these cakes, and what happens with these cakes, and sometimes even with challahs, is the grandmother or the great uncle or the great aunt or someone comes Friday right before Shabbos and brings 3 cakes. Say, oh, okay, you're gonna put this out on the table. Right? You have to be very aware of what's going on because you read the menu. You see, you went and did your homework. You went ahead and you read and you knew this is coming, and then suddenly you see four boxes of cake. Where did this come from? And for the most part, the caterer is not even having the baked goods delivered to his commissary, right, his place of business. He has 35 orders from the bakery. And he gives order number 1 goes to Young Israel of A. The order 2 goes to Beis Medrash B. Order 3 goes to Yeshiva D. Right? Everything is Masuda, and it's dropped at the shul. So you have to follow and know where it's coming from. And even if the caterer is sending the challah, and even if the caterer is sending the baked goods, the rugelach and the cookies, but the fancy cakes might not be coming from that same place. It might be coming from a private person. So you have to know where the challah and baked goods are from. Is all the wine mevushal? Very often, a caterer may not have a liquor license, or he may make a deal with the Baal Simcha and allow the Baal Simcha to provide the alcohol. He says it has to be approved by the OU, but the biggest challenge is Friday afternoon. Mashgiach comes and he sees that there are 6 bottles of non-mevushal wine. Right? The OU and most kashrus agencies will not allow non-mevushal wine because once unless you have a whole crew of frum people working, and even then it's not controllable because you can still have a couple of non-Jews and maybe even have some non-Jews invited to a simcha. A guy's business associate who lives in the neighborhood might come to his kiddush on Shabbos and we'll get the bottle of wine. So we make no exceptions. We don't allow us the wine mevushal. Right? We make sure the wine is mevushal. Right? You come to a kiddush on Shabbos day and you see that they have a carving station. Right? All the food was heated before Shabbos. It was in the Shabbos warmer before, but you see stuff with gravy. How is this stuff heated on Shabbos? Right? You got to be aware of that. Additionally, right, instant tea and coffee. Where is tea and coffee coming from on Shabbos? Right? Can I open the packet on Shabbos? So the guideline that we have written for Shabbos is loose powdered, number 9, loose powdered sweet and low in sugar should be made available in the kitchen for those who will not open the individual packets on Shabbos. When we first wrote these lines, Rav Shechter Shalita, if you look by the words OU Parv on the sweet and low, he was able to open the pack. He opened like 4 or 5 different packets. He was able to open it without carrying any letters and open it. So he said you should write that it should be made available for those who are not. So in my house I always try to find one of those containers that you could pour with as opposed to the packets. Where is the hot water from? So at the Shabbos Kiddush is one thing, but if you take this now into a more commercial setting like a hotel or even a big shul, many shuls have not these little 100 cup urns, but they have these 3 compartment urns, and the urn is connected to the water source in the shul or in the hotel, and it has what's called an inlet valve. This inlet valve on Tuesday, right? You never need to fill up any hot water because every time you take water, more water comes in. If more water is coming in, right, it's a psikresha that you're heating water on Shabbos. So we write that you have to make sure that the inlet valve is shut off before Shabbos. Because, right, if you look, where's the hot water coming from? Did they turn off the inlet valve? Because then, if you fill this up before Shabbos, you can use everything in there because no new water is coming in. Otherwise, you have to bring the caterer cheshbons for a Shabbos 7 cups of hot water per person. So if you're coming to a hotel and there are 700 people for Shabbos, my lower mathematics gets us to 4,900 cups of hot water for Shabbos. All right, now you might not drink 7, you might not drink any, but there are a lot of people who would drink 15. They come Friday afternoon, they come Friday night, they work throughout the meal, they're drinking after the meal, the tea room, and the Shabbos morning 4 cups before davening and during lunch, and they're getting their chazanish share of how many cups they have over Shabbos. So you have to know where the hot water is from, and you have to place them, your 100-cup urns, in the strategic places where they're needed before Shabbos, because you can't unplug and you can't have a guy unplug and move the urn on Shabbos. Right? Make sure it's parv. That's, we saw our Chalov Shkedim, our same pictures, but just it's relevant to the Shabbos Kiddush. Right? Don't squeeze the lemon, although the halacha says you can squeeze the lemon onto fish. Right? You're not allowed to squeeze lemon into the tea. So Rav Shechter said that we should make sure that we have a lemon juice in a bottle for those who want for Shabbos. And finally, the most popular, right? we got a question on a Friday afternoon from a caterer who was doing a convention for Shabbos, and he noticed that they had ordered a happy birthday cake for for someone, and the mashgiach saw it and he said, "What are we supposed to do?" So Schechter wrote a beautiful tshuva on this question, and he said that really this is a chumrah of the Ramah, right? And make sure din it may be mutter. There may not be an issue with cut letters, like someone put in the chat that Schechter doesn't care so much about cutting letters. But so Schechter wrote that what you should do is you should put the cake out in front of everyone with Persume Nisa in his own poetic language, and then he writes that at the end of the day, you should take it into the kitchen for the guy to cut because it's a chumrah Ramah, but we shouldn't cut it. So, but uchatzila, we shouldn't have these there. Okay, right. So the next step is what to ask about a restaurant and sound intelligent. But before I go on to the next topic, if anyone has any specific questions, you can either unmute and ask, or you can chat it. I see some questions here. Why do we assume the sakana of meat and fish and meat together can be addressed by shishim? Is sakana contingent on taste? We say it's halacha kubato. We don't need to be concerned about sakana. So there's a machlokas in I think the Mishnah Berurah and others that say that the sakana is not there when it's less than shishim. It's not palpable. There's no taste. Right, that the sakana is bato. Thank you, Rabbi Ellis. Rav Schechter doesn't care about that. You can ask Rav Schechter himself. Isn't that presuming it isn't a psik ratio? What is an psik ratio? You're not mechaber to pair the letters, right? But some packaging has a lot of things on it that it's almost impossible not to pair the letters. Okay, now we're gonna move on to a restaurant. What to ask about a restaurant and sound intelligence? So I'm gonna put the first three pictures together and just to present the scenario to you, just to show a little bit of how careful people have to be. So what if I came and told you that we're very sensitive in taking racial training. So what if I told you there are 3 goyim have keys to the restaurant? You see the restaurant, it's actually all of Shalom now. This, but there's no this, but this restaurant, I told you 3 goyim had the key to the restaurant. So you might be horrified and say, I can't eat here. But what if I then told you that although they have a key to the restaurant, only the mashgiach, right, has a key to the gas and to the refrigerators, right? So then so he can get into the restaurant, but he can't cook and he can't get any of the food that needs to be locked, right? So one has to be very careful that you hear a whole picture. Sometimes you hear half the story, right? If I would have just started with go back for a second and say they only have the keys to the store, the place is trafe. You just came ahead. You have to see the picture. I like to say to people that some people say v'yatzmach morkani and some people don't, but everyone is l'chavim also davar. Everyone is l'chavim to the same Kadosh Baruch Hu that they're davening to, right? But there are guidelines and policies, and sometimes we lose focus that if he has a key to the store, it's trafe. There are ways within the often the owner or the staff wants to do paperwork at hours when the restaurant's not open, or they have a cleaning crew, and we're going to go next to our cleaning crew, right? Who's watching the cleaning crew, right? We've had experiences in the past where when the cleaning crew was in the restaurant and there were 2 people there, one ran across to McDonald's and goes and put a burger on the grill, and then you have a problem in the morning. So that's why we say we want to lock the gas and lock the refrigerators. That even if he tried, he couldn't do any cooking. And on top of that, right, we try to make sure that the rice cooker and the microwave, we put a plug lock on the plug, right? So if the plug is locked and only a mashgiach has a key to the plug, then they can't I only put it in the microwave for 30 seconds, right? That's all it takes or less to have a problem. Next, right? I'm going to skip Rabbi Schreier is speaking next about vegetables, but we want to ask the question: what is the procedure? Is there a system in place? Right? What is the procedure for monitoring the fires in the ovens? So we spoke about the pilot light before. Convection ovens is something to be very, very aware of. Is that the modern convection ovens, when you open them, they go off, and if they stay open for a convection oven is the one in the middle, where they have a fan there, so it evenly cooks, and it cooks in a better way. And many restaurants and caterers like to use a convection oven. But if it stays open for 3 minutes and the non-Jewish chef will close the convection oven, it will have gone under the sheer bishul, which is around 176 degrees. We say 200 because we don't want to start quibbling with a couple of degrees. Right? If it goes under 200 degrees and the non-Jew closes it, then it's no longer the bishul Yisrael and the mashgiach. So we have them do, and you have to know up front that they have to disable that, to bypass that feature, right? That the fan can go off, but the temperature can't go under 200 degrees. By doing that, they can continuously open and close the convection oven. You have to make sure that you tell the establishment, the caterer, the restaurant, that you understand that by bypassing this feature, your warranty on the oven will expire, and if something happens, it's going to be a problem. But afal pichem, you still can't have mashgiach who's busy with doing a lot of things, having bishul akum in the restaurant. And just what's doing with the fires on the oven. Next, how should I expect my food delivery to arrive? Right, you're calling the Broadway, Mike's Bistro, or all your restaurants, so you want to call them and order them halavai that they should be open to their fullest capacity very soon. How is it going to arrive? So we saw the concept of Basar Shem Salam and Ayin or Shiluach al Akum and sent by a guy. The Shulchan Aruch is concerned about chiluf, that they're going to switch and bring something, switch a sandwich for your corned beef sandwich for a corned beef sandwich from a treifa place. If you're doing a corned beef sandwich from a treifa place, you have to be careful. So you want to have simanim. We generally try to have them tape the bag closed so it can't be tampered with, and staple the receipt over the tape, which is an extra chasima to be sure that you're getting it properly. Right, who is responsible for checking for the kashrus of all products? Now, the OU insists on having a mashgiach tamidi in all of our restaurants and our caterers, but if you look at the supermarket shelf, look who's packing out the stuff in the supermarket. Right, so if a company, a potato chip company or a tortilla chip company has 34 flavors, Baskin-Robbins had 31, so we'll go with 34. Has all these flavors, and they take them out, and this person, who's in the aisle is the one who's packing it out. You have to really be careful to check what's going on. On what products are they mafresh challah? Right, I don't see on today's schedule discussion about fresh challah, but it's something to be aware of. Right, that challah is not only taken on bread; it's taken on cakes and even bularaka, and so you have to know that someone's on top of that. Additionally, now we have our what's the process of separating meat and fish? It's not only on Shabbos, it's not only on it's also by the restaurants. The side dishes, what are they being served with? And a second favorite of mine is the checking of the eggs. So I'm all right, so we have a minute to check the eggs. What is red nail polish doing in a presentation about a restaurant? So one of the processes that we'll sometimes do when a place is cracking a lot of eggs and there's a lot else to do is the mashgiach will have an incentive system with one of the goyim. He's going to show him exactly what to do, and if you see the eggs are cracked in a see-through bowl, the mashgiach can monitor the process at any time. That they'll give him, I guess inflation, it used to be $1, now maybe it's $2, maybe $5, whatever that number is. They'll give the guy X dollars for every blood spot that he finds in the eggs. So we want to make sure that the guy doesn't have an easy way to make money is by having a little red nail polish in his pocket and painting a couple eggs, and then he can go home every day with $20, and you have to make sure that he doesn't have it, and also just to see if anyone's awake. Right, and also who checks the eggs? Right, going for an omelet. You have an omelet station. They're serving omelets. It's someone checking the eggs. Okay, so that's our now our discussion of restaurants. We're going to go now to at the wedding in a hotel. What does mashgiach watch for? Does anyone have questions? What happens if it arrives without the tape or the double seal? So you have to. There are many. So the Eved, we have to look and see if there's a chashash chiluf. If it came with a receipt from the restaurant, right? That's clearly a siman, right? Especially today's receipts don't say the name of the restaurant. It's not just a plain paper that's right, in language you can't even read. and which means you're getting the wrong thing. But if you ordered it 20 minutes ago from this restaurant and you're 3 blocks from there, and it came with a receipt, but they forgot to tape it, right? You have to ask your Rabbi, ask your Rabbi. But to the Eved, if there's no chash chiluf, right? There's what to rely on. But that just because there might be something to rely on, right? Just because there's something that you might be able to rely on doesn't mean that that's the system and the way it should be. And you should contact the kashrus agency and talk to them, because that's the biggest way our eyes and ears when something goes wrong, to help fix anything that might have fallen off. Rabbi Teitelbaum, near Bat Rav, who's ashgacha for a meal march for Ali Meat, often speaks at the OU they ask OU in the summer that we normally have in the office, and they have a meat day where he speaks in the morning, and then they go to the Ali's factory to see how they process the meat, etc. But one of the things he says is a sign of a good agency is one who how he follows up on criticism. If someone brings something to their attention, you accept it and you follow up on it and get back to the person, or you just shout the person down and tell them, "I'm the rights of the Rabbanon," and just hang up on it. Right? You don't know what you're talking about, and it's important how you deal with criticism or with comments that people make. Someone that regards to caterers on Shabbos, what methods are used that are matir in serving hot food with sauce? Serving hot food with sauce, they have to be in the warmer or something before Shabbos. You can't put it up on Shabbos morning. Okay. Now at a wedding in a hotel, what does the mashgiach watch for? So now I'm going to make a bit of an editorial comment before we start this, just so people understand what we're talking about. Right? If you're invited to, and I'm just using the name of a hotel in the city, right, the Marriott Marquis Hotel. I'm not sure what people are thinking when they're invited to such an event. At the same time that this event is going on, in the same kitchen that's going on, the tray for kitchen is in operation as well. You have to have enough mashgichim, and you literally have a mashgiach standing guard to make sure that nothing passes from this side to this side. You have 2 people standing here, one next to the other. You have a mashgiach in between them to make sure the chefs don't coincide. But the staff in the hotel is also the hotel staff. You might have 1 or 2 chefs from the caterer, but many hotels are union hotels, and you can't use any other staff there. You have to use their workers and their waiters, and so one has to be very careful and very concerned about what's going on. And in fact, one of the most difficult areas, which we'll discuss later on in this list, is the bar. In many of these places, the bar is a difficult place to control, because to understand how the operation goes, the Baal Simcha first contracts with the hotel to book the date. Right? They put a down payment, whatever, with the hotel for a date. Sometimes they might do it through the caterer, but often they want to book through the hotel. And then after they book with the hotel and or the Baal Simcha find a caterer. But the hashgacha only has a relationship with the caterer. We have no relationship with the hotel, and we really have no way of doing anything, right? We said many of them are union people. We have many difficulties with the bar. In fact, one of my caterers, who said to talk about how little the jobs have taken place. I got a message from one of my caterers yesterday, Shechianu, that he finally may have a job next week for 100 people. 100 people is like I think in Westchester they're going to phase 3 next week, so can I be up to 100 people? It's like a big simcha that the caterer is writing Shechianu. But normally when you have 200-300 people, you have multiple mashgichim. You're saying, is it possible to work with the mashgichim on how many mashgichim we're going to have at the event? And I said, unfortunately, the place where this event is taking place is notorious for giving us trouble with the bar. I'm going to have someone who's going to be able to be monitoring it on a regular basis throughout, at least during the time of the event. So we're going to try to work with you, but up to a point. But it's something to realize that the bar is totally the hotels, and even if you would necessarily find a person behind the bar taking a non-kosher something or something that we didn't approve of, right? I don't know how much people are familiar with the liquors and the sherry cast and the non-sherry cast. you shouldn't be. You should use grapefruit for kiddush and stay away from any of this stuff. But that's my editorial comment. But the challenge is great. So let's look at some of the things that you have to be aware of in a hotel. Right? Check all the waiter's equipment. A waiter is as successful as his kalim are. Now we'll get to the chefs, who slice the meats at the event, right? Because the chef's value is how many pieces he can get out of a big piece of meat, a prime rib. How many pieces he can cut. If he has a knife that will get him 3 extra pieces of meat, and they're cutting 30 big things of meat at the smorgasbord, right? He just saved them 90 pieces of meat. He just gained for the caterer 90 pieces of meat. So he's going to be able to go back to his commissary with an extra four things of meat that he didn't have to give to the simple. Right? So a caterer's equipment is very important. His tongs, his scissors, everything that he uses. You have to make sure that the waiters, don't have any, and because the waiters are often the waiters of the hotel, they know where the tray for stuff is also. So just like we said, you need seven cups of hot water for Shabbos. When they're kashering in a hotel, you need 7 forks per person. 4 or 5 per person for the smorgasbord, and 2 for the dinner. So if you imagine, as the numbers go up, the amount of silverware just goes up exponentially. Right? So you have to make sure the caterer, the mashgiach who's kashering in the hotel, kashering the silverware, kashering more than enough that they have. Right? Make sure the knives are from the caterer, especially on the carving station. Right? You see the different sizes of knives can make a difference on how the food is going to appear before the person and how many pieces you can get out. So you have to be very careful with that. What else? Right, who is turning on the fires on the smorgasbord? So the obvious question, you would think the mashgiach has to turn it on. So I'll recall a conversation that I had with one of the caterers when they were doing a dinner for the city of Bet El. Right, they do a dinner in the Marriott Marquis for 1,500 plus people every year. So many years ago, the first year our caterer was doing it, we had a pre-meeting about a month before the dinner to go over with the mashgiach who was going to do the kashering and the chef and the caterer, because it was the first time this caterer had just come to the OU. They've been doing the dinner for many years, and he just wanted to make sure that we were on the same page, because this is that dinner basically kept the caterer in business for much of the year. So they wanted to make sure it went well. It wasn't a problem. So the chef of the caterer asked the rabbi who was doing the kashering, who turns on the sternos in the hot box, right, which is the one on the bottom right in your picture, right? So without batting an eyelash, the mashgiach responded to him, "You are." The chef, turned up his eyes a little bit, and he said, "Everything going in that hot box that you're heating is already cooked, right? And bishul achar bishul, there's no issue with bishul achar. If you have 30 of those, and I forget or mistakenly don't light one of them, right? And something goes wrong, you're going to blame me. At a job for 1,500 people, it's better for me that you're going to light all those sternos and make sure that they're all lit. And if something goes wrong, it's your problem, then not my problem." So that's on the one hand. But on the other hand, if you're making crepes, you're making eggs, you're making anything that's that's an issue of bishul akum, right? The mashgiach has to be sure to turn it on, and he has to be sure that he's focusing on that, on a regular basis throughout the time he's there. Next. Right? Again, what is the procedure for segregating fish and meat? Right? Equipment. So what you often find at a fancy dinner, they do what's called French serving. French serving is they take the tongs and they come in front of you and they take the meat and they take the potatoes and they take the carrots and they put it on your plate. Right? What happens with the fish? Like the fish, if you're taking the same tongs to use the meat and the potatoes and the carrots, right? So what they end up doing, you're gonna have a problem because the same tongs that touched meat are touching the carrots and the green beans, and now they're fleshing and serving fish. So what they do in the kitchen is they'll have a separate station with the side dishes and with the fish where it's plated in the kitchen, and anyone who orders fish is going to get his plate from the waiter, not he's going to be French served in front of him. right? Additionally, make sure all margarine is parve, right? The difference between butter and margarine, they want to make it fancy, and today maybe they use extra virgin olive oil, maybe healthier, but when they're using butter and margarine, you got to make sure that the margarine is margarine and butter is butter, and usually we'll tell the caterer to have different shapes for milchiks and parve. This way, he only makes rosettes for fleishiks, and he only makes patties for milchik, etc., or vice versa. Right? Who are the waiters and the chefs at the events? Right? You see the waiters all dressed in their aprons and their vests. Right? If the waiters are of the hotel, you need eyes in the back of your head, because they know where everything is. And if a guest asks them for something, you have to really be watching where they're going. And that's why in a hotel we have additional mashgichim than we would normally have in a shul or in a kosher venue. We may have one mashgiach. In a hotel we're going to have 2, 3, 4, depending on the size and the number of floors the event is taking place on, right? And who are the chefs? Are they the regular chef for the caterer, or are they hired hands for the day? When a caterer is doing numerous events on the same day, right? So he can't have his regular chef in the place. Right? Additionally, next, right? Who is supplying the alcohol and drinks? Right? I spoke about it a little bit. I'll tell you a horrific story that happened, only to show and to prove the point. We had an event at a hotel in the metropolitan area, 700 people. The mashgiach checked the bar before the event and went through with the beverage manager of the hotel that a specific drink, Macallan, right, which is aged in sherry cask, was not allowed. He had 2 cases of it. He saw that the beverage manager put it in the catering manager's office. This way, it wouldn't go on the rolling bar that he was serving. In the dinner by the event, there were 12 mini bars, right, semicircle bars. There were 12 of them. At some point during the evening, the mashgiach went just to check the bar, and he saw one of the people reaching under the table, under a tablecloth. So he stood there watching a little, and he said, "What's that?" Said, "Oh, the party planner." That's why I have my event planner on the bottom. The party planner had told him he better serve it or he's not getting paid. And regardless of the fact that the party planner happens to be a religious person, these are the challenges you find. Besides the hotel, you have an event planner. Now, I once spoke by a conference of many kashrus agencies. They asked me to speak about party planners, and I started off with my line that we finally found an area where the kashrus agencies and the caterers agree. We all hate party planners, because forgive me if anyone's relative is a party planner, but the issue is that the party planner has no hashgacha, can do what they want, and actually I hate to say it, the more religious the party planner is, the more advantage they're able to take by saying, "You don't trust me, I'm for it," right? They take advantage of that fact. So it's a big challenge. So you need to know who's supplying the alcohol and the drinks and where they're coming from, and I'll tell you a story that happened in the restaurant, and with that we're almost finished, so I can leave some time for questions. I got a call on a Motzei Shabbos that someone had in a restaurant that they wanted to bring in non-Nonemotional wine for a party, and I told him no, and he said okay. So that's our policy. We don't allow non-Nonemotional wine because it's impossible to control such an event. The mashgiach calls me an hour later that one of the last guests of the simcha brought in non-Nonemotional wine, and he went to and he put it under the table, and so the mashgiach saw it, and he saw he was in a very difficult position. So he went over to the waitress of the table, and he said, "No one's allowed to touch the wine. You're not allowed to touch any of the wine on the table." The waitress went down crying to the manager, like maybe she had some communicable disease, chas v'shalom or whatever, a non-Jew, and then she was crying, and it's an impossible situation. You can't control it. People think that it's I'm only a Jew's going to pour it, and it's easy. It's very complicated, and it's very hard to explain. So it's something to be aware. Let me just finish with my last point. Then we'll leave time for any questions and or a break. All right, know the questions to ask in each area. Don't be afraid or ashamed to ask. Right? You're allowed to ask. The customer's always right. If you're going to be a guest by a simcha, ask. Don't be afraid to ask. Right? When invited to a simcha, call the caterer and ask the questions. Whose meat is he using? Where is it coming from? What are you doing for Shabbos? How? Right? But as long as you're asking to know and not just to be a kanter, not to just be a troublemaker, right? They're legitimate questions. It is our responsibility to be aware of what we are putting in our mouth. If it sounds too good to be true, it probably is. We are very fortunate to have available so much kosher food. We need to demand high standards. All the people in this Zoom room are the future of Klal Yisrael in many ways. They're the future consumer and the future rabbanim in many ways. And if you drill yourself and drill your future kehilos on the importance that not that you settle, but that if you demand it, it'll be. If someone would walk into a supermarket and he asks the supermarket, "Do you have a mashgiach tamidi in the meat department?" and they say no, and you walk out of the supermarket, if 3 people do that on one day, by the next day the store will have a mashgiach tamidi in their meat department. The consumer has the rights as long as you do it in a respectful way. If Rabbi Elephant's not talking politics, I'm even less attuned to what's going on in the world. But you see what's going on. We have to be the Orla Goyim. We can't be like the Goyim. We have to ask and we have to demand and request, but we also have to be good about it. Thank you for listening and have a great day. If anyone has any questions, you can either put it on the chat or you can go ahead and unmute yourself and ask. I'm just going to put my email address if anyone has on the chat. If anyone has any questions, they are welcome to contact me.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Schreier. We have about 2 minutes, right? A couple minutes now. Take questions and a break. Rabbi Schreier will be dealing with B'dikas Talayim. What's bugging you? A practicum on B'dikas Talayim at 11:35. So if anyone has any questions, Rabbi Schreier, I guess you could try unmuting yourself, and we'll see if that works. If not, you can try chatting it as well.
Okay, I just put my email address if anyone has any questions. But an important thing to know, I'm happy to answer your questions, but remember, I live in the witness protection program. You can't quote me, and you can't, especially when you're asking about sensitive questions. I'm happy to help people I know, but I don't. It can't be that you said this to be the conversation.
Question about warmers. You mentioned that aim bishul achar bishul, and does that, when it comes to like bishul akum, like in terms of who turns on the warmer, does that mean that a Jew should turn on the warmer even though it's already cooked? I just wanted to clarify.
No, so what I said was the Jew doesn't have to. I mean, sometimes you want to make a low plug, but when you're dealing with a dinner of 1,500 people, you have to make a triage and know what the halacha is and what's required, and what if the mashgiach is going to be busy with lighting 30 hot boxes and 3 to 4 sternos in every hot box, that's 120 of sternos he's got to light. That's going to take a long time and may take away from playing quarterback and playing defensive back in the kitchen. But if you're talking about a job for 20 people, which is what's going on now, the mashgiach should be lighting everything.
Even though it's already cooked?
Even though it's already cooked, sometimes low plug is the better approach.
Got it. Thank you.
A quick question: when you said about the ovens, when you open it, the temperature when it goes down, it may be an issue. Why again is that an issue? What's the problem with that? Rabbi Schreier?
Okay. If there are no more questions, I'm going to mute myself and wish everyone a good day.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Schreier.